Climate change is a complex and pressing issue that is reshaping our planet in profound ways, regardless of its exact causes. Whether you believe climate change is driven by human activity, natural cycles, or a combination of both, what truly matters is how we respond to these changes and take action to preserve these rare places and the unique inhabitants that call them home. Scientific evidence shows that global temperatures are rising, and the polar ice caps are melting at an accelerated rate, resulting in rising sea levels and altered ecosystems. This change directly impacts coastlines worldwide, leading to habitat loss for animals such as polar bears and seals, and poses significant challenges for humans, as nearly half of the world's population lives within 60 miles of the ocean. Coastal erosion, flooding, and the loss of critical habitats underscore the urgency of addressing these changes thoughtfully and collaboratively to ensure the resilience of both human and natural systems. Welcome to NPJR, where we explore the great outdoors one national park at a time. I'm Justin.
And I'm Robin. We encourage you to pause the podcast at any time and discuss some of our talking points or try answering our trail trivias. Today, we're heading to the national park in the U.S. that is located farther north than any other, Gates of the Arctic National Park. This place is the ultimate wilderness of our national parks.
Gates of the Arctic National Park, located in northern Alaska, is one of the most remote and pristine landscapes in the U.S. Congress established the national park on December 2, 1980. Encompassing 8.4 million acres of untouched wilderness, it lies entirely above the Arctic Circle, offering an unparalleled experience for adventurers seeking solitude and a connection with nature. It is really difficult to condense 8.4 million acres worth of information into a single episode, so Gates of the Arctic will be divided into 2 episodes.
Together, neighboring Noatak National Preserve, Kobuk Valley National Park, and Arctic National Wildlife Refuge combine with Gates of the Arctic to make up one of the world's largest areas of protected parklands. These parks have many overlapping features, so we will likely discuss some of what isn't covered in our Gates of the Arctic two-parter in those future episodes. Over the next 2 episodes, we will provide an in-depth exploration of the park and work through an activity from the Junior Ranger program together.
Today's episode features an overview of Gates of the Arctic, a discussion about specific wildlife found in the park, including caribou, polar bears, snowy owls, and the Arctic fox. We will learn about the tundra and the boreal forest, and learn about one historical park figure featured on the NPS website. Next week, we will cover another historical park figure, the mountains and hiking aspects of the park, wildlife including muskoxen, Arctic ground squirrels, and gyrfalcons. Next week, we will also talk about mosquitoes, permafrost, travel logistics, some fish species, and fishing in the park, and the native inhabitants of the park. Let's dive in.
Gates of the Arctic is notable for its vast, unspoiled beauty, encompassing jagged peaks, expansive valleys, and crystal-clear rivers. The park does not have any established roads, trails, or visitor facilities, making it a truly wild and rugged destination. The park's 8.4 million acres makes it the second largest national park in the U.S. In 2023, only 11,045 visitors came to the park, making it the least visited national park in the U.S., reflecting its remote nature. The climate is characterized by extreme seasonal variations, including long, harsh winters and brief but vibrant summers. Its remoteness also makes it expensive to visit. Visitors should plan carefully due to the park's remoteness and lack of resources once there. There are no entrance fees or visitor centers within the park, though the nearby Arctic Interagency Visitor Center in Coldfoot provides valuable resources and a visitor orientation. The visitor orientation, specifically a backcountry orientation, is required for anyone entering the backcountry of Gates of the Arctic. The information covers backcountry safety, bear safety, leave no trace principles, and current conditions before heading out.
Gates of the Arctic lies within the Central Brooks mountain range, the northernmost extension of the Rocky Mountains. Located 200 air miles north of Fairbanks, Alaska, the park spans nearly 200 miles in length and 130 miles in width. From November to March, most activity ceases while negative 20 degree to negative 50 degree Fahrenheit temperatures persist. But the land bursts with intensity during the Arctic's short summers. Wildflowers such as lupine, forget-me-not, and fireweed turn the Arctic tundra into a kaleidoscope of color.
The park's rugged landscape is characterized by glaciated Arctic valleys, wild rivers, pristine lakes, and mountain peaks that rise from foothills at 4,000 feet to jagged ridges of limestone and granite surpassing 8,000 feet. The vegetation varies from sparse black spruce forests to boreal forest and Arctic tundra. The park provides critical habitat for the western Arctic caribou herd and supports diverse wildlife including moose, Dall's sheep, wolverines, wolves, grizzly, and black bears, and overall is home to about 900 species of plants and animals. Trail trivia. What was the coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth and on what continent?
The world's coldest temperature record of negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 89.2 degrees Celsius on July 21, 1983 is held by the high-altitude Vostok Weather Station in Antarctica. Back-to-back trail trivia. What is the coldest temperature ever recorded in the U.S., and what state was it in? The coldest temperature ever recorded in the U.S. was negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit in Prospect Creek, Alaska, on January 23, 1971. Back to Gates of the Arctic. Despite its remote and untouched appearance, Gates of the Arctic holds evidence of human habitation spanning at least 12,000 years. Numerous archaeological and historical sites dot the landscape.
The park's name originates from the forester and wilderness advocate Robert Marshall, who began exploring the Central Brooks Range in 1929. He christened two peaks flanking the North Fork of the Kayakuk River as Frigid Crags and Boreal Mountain, collectively calling them the Gates of the Arctic. Marshall's writings and philosophy profoundly influenced the wilderness movement, leading to the 1964 Wilderness Act and ultimately inspiring the park's establishment in 1980 under the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, ANILCA.
Visitors to Gates of the Arctic seek solitude and immersion in one of the most remote wilderness areas in the world. Because the park lacks trails, signs, and visitor facilities, and no roads leads to its boundaries, those venturing in must rely entirely on their skills and preparation, often spending days or weeks without encountering another person. Despite this remoteness, the park's eastern boundary lies just 5 miles from the Dalton Highway. Most of the park consists of federal lands, with some state, city, and privately owned parcels, including native allotments and corporation-owned lands.
Gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve stands as a testament to the enduring beauty and significance of untouched wilderness, preserving the ecological, cultural, and historical treasures of Alaska's Arctic frontier. The park is home to diverse ecosystems, including tundra, boreal forests, and wetlands.
Among the most prominent plant species are black spruce, white spruce, Arctic willow, dwarf birch, lichen, and mosses, which thrive in the cold climate. Animal inhabitants include iconic Arctic species such as caribou, often seen in large herds during their seasonal migrations, the Arctic fox, and muskox. Dall's sheep prefer the rugged mountain terrain, while wolves, foxes, and moose can be found in river valleys. Trail trivia. What is the only member of the deer species that both the females and males have antlers?
That is the caribou. Both female and male caribou have antlers, making them the only members of the deer family where both sexes have antlers. Caribou, also known as reindeer, are iconic mammals that thrive in the vast tundra and boreal forests of northern Alaska. These animals play a vital role in the ecosystem, the cultural heritage of indigenous communities, and the region's biodiversity. Northern Alaska is home to several large caribou herds, including the porcupine, western Arctic, and central Arctic herds. These animals are highly adapted to the harsh Arctic environment with thick fur and broad hooves that help them traverse snowy landscapes and marshy terrain. Caribou are migratory animals traveling up to 3,000 miles annually, the longest terrestrial migration of any mammal. This journey is driven by seasonal needs, as caribou seek calving grounds in the spring, forage in the summer, and wintering areas with accessible lichens and vegetation.
Reindeer are keystone species in the Arctic ecosystem, with 32 separate and tracked herds existing in Alaska. A subspecies, the Prairie caribou, is the smallest of all the caribou and is specific to the Arctic tundra regions. The males reach about 240 pounds and the females only about 130 pounds. Compared to larger caribou species that range from 220 pounds for the females, and the largest species of caribou, the mountain caribou, bulls can weigh between 600 and 700 pounds. Their grazing patterns influence vegetation distribution, while their droppings enrich the soil. Caribou also serve as a critical food source for predators like wolves and bears, supporting the region's food web. Their annual migrations also redistribute nutrients across the tundra, contributing to the ecosystem's resilience. For thousands of years, caribou have been central to the subsistence lifestyle of Alaska's indigenous peoples. These communities rely on caribou for food, clothing, tools, and cultural practices. Caribou hunting is deeply embedded in their traditions, fostering a profound connection between people and the land.
Despite their resilience, caribou face significant challenges from climate change and human activities. Warming temperatures have altered vegetation patterns and increased insect harassment, impacting their health and migration. Industrial development, such as oil exploration in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, threatens to disrupt calving grounds and migration corridors. Conservation efforts are essential to ensure the balance between development and the preservation of these herds.
The reindeer in northern Alaska are more than just a symbol of the Arctic wilderness. They are an integral part of its ecological, cultural, and environmental fabric. Protecting these animals requires a collaborative effort to address climate change and safeguard their habitat, ensuring their survival for future generations and maintaining the ecological harmony of the Arctic tundra.
The Alaskan tundra, a vast and treeless landscape stretching across the northernmost regions of the state, is one of Earth's most distinctive ecosystems. Covering areas such as the Arctic coastal plain, the Brooks Range, and parts of western Alaska, the tundra is characterized by its extreme climate, permafrost, and unique biodiversity. Despite its seemingly barren appearance, the tundra plays a critical role in global ecological systems. The tundra's climate is defined by long, harsh winters, with temperatures often dropping below -50 degrees Fahrenheit, and short, cool summers. Permafrost, or permanently frozen ground, underlies much of the tundra, limiting the growth of deep-rooted plants and shaping the region's vegetation and hydrology. The landscape features vast plains, rolling hills, wetlands, and small lakes formed by seasonal thawing.
The tundra supports a surprising diversity of life, with plant and animal species uniquely adapted to its extreme conditions. Vegetation includes low-growing plants like mosses, lichens, grasses, and shrubs that can withstand cold and nutrient-poor soils. These plants form the foundation of the food web, supporting herbivores like caribou, musk oxen, and Arctic hares. Predators, including Arctic foxes, wolves, and grizzly bears, depend on these herbivores for survival. Bird species such as snowy owls and migratory waterfowl also thrive during the short summers, taking advantage of abundant insect populations. The Alaskan tundra plays a vital role in regulating global climate. Its permafrost stores vast amounts of carbon which, if released due to warming temperatures, could accelerate climate change. Wetlands in the tundra act as important habitats for migratory birds and contribute to maintaining biodiversity. The tundra is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Rising temperatures cause permafrost to thaw, leading to habitat changes, increasing greenhouse gas emissions, and disruptions to ecosystems.
For Alaska Native communities, the tundra has been a home and source of sustenance for thousands of years. It provides resources such as caribou, fish, and plants, which are integral to subsistence lifestyles. Indigenous knowledge and stewardship have been crucial in maintaining the health of the ecosystem. By preserving the tundra, we safeguard not only its biodiversity, but also its critical role in the global climate system.
Snowy owls are majestic birds native to the Arctic tundra. They have many nicknames: the polar owl, the white owl, the Arctic owl, ghost owls, Scandinavian night birds, and great white owls. They are large, white owls of the true owl family. Trail trivia. What is the largest owl species by weight in North America? It's the snowy owl. While great horned owls are taller, snowy owls are North America's largest owl by weight, typically weighing around 4 pounds, with the females weighing more than the males. Their pure white feathers provide exceptional camouflage against the snowy landscapes, making them one of the most well-adapted predators in this harsh environment.
Their thick, hollow white feathers provide insulation and keep them warm in the Arctic. Their feet and legs are also covered in feathers that act like snowshoes. These large birds have round heads, cat-like yellow eyes, and powerful talons, which they use to hunt small mammals like lemmings, voles, and rabbits. Snowy owls are known for their keen hearing, which helps them locate prey beneath the snow. They migrate south in search of food when food becomes scarce in the harsh Arctic winter. Snowy owls lay a large clutch of eggs, but the development of the young takes a long time. They are nomadic and rarely breed in the same places or with the same mates each year. Snowy owls are not only iconic symbols of the Arctic, but they also play a vital role in maintaining the balance of the ecosystem by controlling small mammal populations. Next up, polar bears.
Polar bears are occasionally seen in the park, but it's rare. Polar bears need to be on the ice pack to hunt seals and walruses, which are their primary food source. Climate change is causing the polar ice to decline, which may impact polar bear populations. Polar bears in northern Alaska are in danger of becoming extinct.
Polar bears, the largest land carnivores on Earth, are a defining species of the Arctic. The scientific community considers them marine mammals. Even though they are born on land, they spend most of their lives on sea ice and in the ocean. In northern Alaska, these majestic animals inhabit the coastal regions of the Beaufort and Chukchi Seas, relying on the sea ice for survival. Their presence is a vital indicator of the health of the Arctic ecosystem. Polar bears are uniquely adapted to the harsh Arctic environment. They depend on sea ice for hunting, traveling, resting, and breeding. Polar bears exchange a touch on their noses to ask permission for things like sharing food. I think this is so cute and polite for having such voracious appetites and being such fierce predators. Their thick fur and a layer of insulating fat provide protection against freezing temperatures, while their large, powerful paws enable efficient swimming and traction on ice. Trail trivia. How many pounds can a polar bear weigh?
According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the heaviest polar bear ever documented was shot in Alaska in 1960. It weighed 2,209 pounds, stood nearly 12 feet tall, and was displayed at the 1962 Seattle World's Fair. Back-to-back trail trivia. What color is polar bear fur? You might consider this one a trick question. Polar bear fur is translucent. Translucent means we can see light shining through it, but we can't see clearly what's on the other side of it. Over the past half-century, polar bears have significantly decreased in size. Males now average about 1,000 pounds. They are able to smell prey from over half a mile away. They need to consume approximately 4.4 pounds of fat daily, which means a 121-pound seal provides about 8 days of sustenance. Polar bears can eat 100 pounds of seal blubber in one sitting. They have 2 layers of fur, and they molt in the summer months and grow a new coat before the next winter. They have fur on the bottoms of their paws, which are the size of large dinner plates, about 12 inches across, providing extra warmth and creating traction on the ice. Polar bears are incredible swimmers. Their paws are slightly webbed and can regularly swim distances of 30 miles. Trail trivia. What is the longest distance a polar bear has been recorded swimming?
426 miles. According to National Geographic, in 2011, one female polar bear swim was recorded at 426 miles, or 687 kilometers, achieved over 9 straight days, which is almost the distance as the entire Blue Ridge Parkway. Her journey through the Beaufort Sea is indicative of the longer and longer stretches mother bears are having to swim to reach land. Unfortunately, this comes at a risk to their cubs, who often are not mature enough or strong enough, nor have enough stored fat to make it the whole way. In this case, the cub died at some point during the mother's swim. When she reached land, she herself had lost 22% of her body weight. During the winter and spring, polar bears hunt seals by wading at breathing holes in the ice or breaking into seal dens. In the summer and fall, when sea ice retreats, many bears must move to land where they rely on fat reserves until the ice returns. As apex predators, polar bears play a crucial role in maintaining the balance of the Arctic marine ecosystem. By preying on seals, they help regulate seal populations, which in turn affects the dynamics of the marine food web. The presence of polar bears also serves as an ecological indicator reflecting changes in the Arctic environment.
Polar bears are listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act and depleted under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Polar bears hold deep cultural and spiritual significance for the indigenous peoples of northern Alaska. They are featured prominently in stories, art, and traditions, symbolizing strength and resilience.
As their habitat diminishes, polar bears are forced to travel greater distances to find food, leading to increased energy expenditure and decreased body condition. Other challenges include oil and gas development, pollution, and increased human-bear interactions as bears spend more time on land. Efforts to conserve polar bears include habitat protection, climate change mitigation, and international agreements like the 1973 Agreement on the Conservation of Polar Bears. Polar bears are not only an iconic symbol of the Arctic, but also a barometer of the health of the Arctic. Their survival depends on preserving the integrity of their sea ice habitat and addressing global environmental challenges. Protecting polar bears is essential for maintaining the ecological balance of the Arctic and honoring the cultural heritage of the region's indigenous peoples. Without this fragile ecosystem, many of these key Arctic species could become extinct, or have to undergo extreme adaptations to stand a chance at existing anywhere outside of a zoo.
The boreal forest is a vast and vital wilderness named after Boreas, the Greek god of the cold north wind and the bringer of winter. The boreal forest, also known as taiga, is one of the world's largest and most important ecosystems, spanning across Alaska, Canada, Scandinavia, and Russia, and the boreal biome contains some of the most extensive, intact ecosystems on Earth. In Alaska, the boreal forest stretches across much of the interior and south-central regions, forming a critical transition zone between the Arctic tundra to the north and temperate forests to the south. This immense forest ecosystem plays a key role in supporting biodiversity, regulating the global climate, and sustaining human and wildlife populations.
The boreal forest is defined by its cold climate, long winters, and short growing seasons. Its vegetation is dominated by coniferous trees such as spruce, fir, and pine, along with deciduous species like aspen and birch. Beneath the trees, a dense layer of mosses, lichens, and shrubs thrives, and the forest floor is often covered with permafrost or nutrient-poor soils. Wetlands, rivers, and lakes are abundant, contributing to the region's rich ecological diversity. The boreal forest supports a wide variety of wildlife, many of which are specially adapted to its cold and variable environment. Large mammals like moose, caribou, wolves, and bears roam the forests, while smaller creatures such as beavers, snowshoe hares, and lynx contribute to the ecosystem's balance. The forest is also a crucial breeding ground for migratory birds, providing summer habitats for waterfowl, songbirds, and raptors.
The boreal forest plays a vital role in carbon storage. Its trees and soil act as a massive carbon sink, helping to regulate the Earth's climate. The forest also influences hydrological cycles, as its wetlands and waterways filter water and moderate regional temperatures. The boreal forest is also a source of economic activity, including timber, mining, and oil and gas extraction. However, these activities must be managed sustainably to avoid damaging the forest's ecological integrity.
The boreal forest faces significant challenges from climate change, deforestation, and industrial development. Rising temperatures lead to increased wildfires, permafrost thaw, and shifts in vegetation, which disrupt ecosystems and release stored carbon into the atmosphere. Conservation efforts focus on protecting large, connected areas of the forest and promoting sustainable resource use to balance ecological health with human needs. Preserving this critical ecosystem is essential for maintaining the health of the planet and the well-being of future generations.
The Arctic fox, a small but resilient predator, is a quintessential species of Alaska's Arctic tundra. Renowned for its adaptability to extreme cold and resourceful behavior, the Arctic fox thrives in one of the harshest environments on Earth, embodying the resilience of Arctic wildlife. Arctic foxes are found throughout Alaska's northern tundra, particularly along coastal regions and in areas near the Beaufort and Chukchi Seas. Their thick, multi-layered fur provides exceptional insulation, and their compact bodies minimize heat loss. In winter, their coats are white to blend in with the snow, while summer coats turn brown or gray, offering camouflage in the tundra landscape. Their bushy tails, also called brushes, serve as additional insulation and balance during movement.
Arctic foxes are omnivores, meaning they eat both plants and animals, with a diet that varies seasonally. They primarily hunt small mammals such as lemmings, which are a crucial food source during the summer. They also scavenge carcasses left by larger predators like polar bears and wolves, and consume fish, birds, and vegetation when available. In winter, Arctic foxes are known to follow polar bears on the sea ice, scavenging seal remains. This resourcefulness allows them to endure long periods with limited food.
Arctic foxes are solitary during much of the year but form monogamous pairs during the breeding season. They dig extensive dens in sandy or gravelly soils, which provide shelter and a safe place to raise their litters of up to 14 pups, depending on food availability. Arctic foxes play a vital role in the Arctic ecosystem by controlling rodent populations and scavenging, which aids in nutrient recycling. Their presence also influences the behavior of prey species and other scavengers, contributing to the balance of tundra and coastal ecosystems.
Just like the other species we have covered today, the Arctic fox populations face challenges from climate change and competition with red foxes, which are expanding northward due to warming temperatures. Melting sea ice also affects their access to coastal habitats and prey. Diseases such as rabies and parasitic infections pose additional threats. Conservation efforts focus on monitoring populations and understanding the impacts of climate change on their habitats and behavior. Arctic foxes hold significance for Alaska Native communities, serving as a source of fur and a symbol of resilience in folklore and storytelling.
As climate change continues to reshape the Arctic, the fate of these resilient animals depends on efforts to protect their habitat and understand the changing dynamics of their ecosystem. By safeguarding the Arctic fox, we help preserve the balance and integrity of Alaska's fragile tundra environments.
Smaller mammals such as Arctic ground squirrels and voles contribute to the ecosystem. Insects, including mosquitoes and midges, are abundant during summer months, making insect repellents and netting essential for visitors. Now, let's explore the Junior Ranger program and complete an activity together. The Junior Ranger program engages us in learning about the park's ecology and cultural history. Completing activities such as wildlife observation and map reading can earn you a badge. A fascinating fact is that the park's name comes from two dramatic mountains, Frigid Crags and Boreal Mountain, described by explorer Robert Marshall as resembling gates to the Arctic.
One of the exercises on the NPS website within the Junior Ranger section is Protect Wild Places. If you want to start from the beginning, go to their webpage, What is Gates of the Arctic, and read the section Alaska's Ultimate Wilderness. In this episode, we've covered much of the information found there, so let's walk through this activity together.
Pause the podcast between these questions and think about your answers and talk about them amongst yourselves. Number 1. What are some activities people do for fun in the wilderness?
I like to hike and enjoy wildlife observation. Robin, what activities do you like to do for fun in the wilderness?
I also love hiking, and I love to camp. Number 2. Name 3 things that Gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve protects.
The thing that comes to my mind is the vast expanses of an untamed wilderness. Being more specific, it protects 1, the land, 2, the wildlife, and 3, the cultural heritage of the indigenous peoples.
Number 3. What could you do to help protect this amazing place?
I would really like to visit this special place one day. I feel that when someone has a personal experience somewhere, it creates more of a real connection to that place. Instead of it just being a dot on a map, it becomes more important because of the intimate experience of actually being there. Then, one can fully appreciate the splendor and uniqueness. That said, I feel like we are helping to protect this amazing place by doing this episode and helping others hear about Gates of the Arctic and what we can all do to help preserve it. And you are helping protect it by listening to this episode and learning all about Gates of the Arctic and what you can do to help protect it. Before we wrap up this episode, let's learn about a notable person of the park's history.
Robert Marshall, or Bob as he preferred to be called, led a life of relentless activity and exploration. Born in 1901 to a well-to-do Jewish family in New York City, he developed an early passion for nature, spending many summers exploring the Adirondack Mountains, from his family's summer home on Lower Saranac Lake. By 1924, he and his brother George had successfully climbed all 46 high peaks of the Adirondacks. In 1929, Bob set his sights on the largely uncharted Central Brooks Range in Alaska, arriving in Wiseman that summer and using the small mining town as his base. He was so captivated by Wiseman that he returned the following year, spending an entire year there and documenting his experiences in his book Arctic Village.
Throughout the summer of 1929, Bob undertook several expeditions in the Brooks Range, exploring by boat and on foot. He named many of the mountains and streams, most notably the Gates of the Arctic. A striking area where two towering peaks, Boreal Mountain and Frigid Crags, frame the North Fork of the Kayakuk River. Marshall described this location as feeling like entering the Arctic, leaving the world of man behind. In 1934, he was one of the 4 founders of the Wilderness Society, dedicated to protecting wilderness areas across the U.S.
Although he seemed tireless, Bob's demanding lifestyle eventually took a toll. He passed away unexpectedly in 1939 at just 38 years old. His explorations and writings shaped the Central Brooks Range as a place of rare beauty and solitude, and his efforts helped lay the groundwork for the eventual establishment of Gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve more than 40 years after his death.
During his life, Bob's longing for nature grew stronger as he sought escape from the modern mechanized world. He pursued a career in forestry, earning a degree from the College of Forestry at Syracuse University, and later advanced degrees in forestry from Harvard, where he got his master's, and Johns Hopkins, where he got his PhD. While working for the U.S. Forest Service in Montana, Bob often hiked over 20 miles a day on his own time, earning recognition from his coworkers. Despite his urban upbringing, Bob's true passion lay in wilderness. He was fascinated by the blank spaces on maps, areas unexplored and untouched by the Western world. To him, Alaska offered the greatest opportunity for untouched wilderness, making it his ultimate destination for adventure and discovery. His explorations and writings promoted the Central Brooks Range as a place of special beauty and solitude. He said, "I love the woods and solitude. I should hate to spend the greater part of my lifetime in a stuffy office or in a crowded city."
Today, Gates of the Arctic is one of the last few remaining areas of relatively untouched wilderness in the U.S. If you haven't visited Gates of the Arctic yet, and most likely you haven't, we hope this inspired you to add it to your bucket list. We added it to ours. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, share, and follow us for more outdoor adventures. And to all you junior rangers out there, good luck on earning your badge. And hey, if you've earned a junior ranger badge recently, send us a picture. We'd love to see it.
And if you want, feel free to share your latest story from your time in a national park unit. Who knows? Maybe we will mention it in one of our upcoming episodes. Be sure to include in the email that you grant us permission to share your story. I will include our email address, npjrpodcast@gmail.com, in our show notes. And feel free to follow us on our adventures on Instagram, @npjrpodcast. Until next time, happy trails. And remember, the earth is ours to explore and protect. So let's get out there and do it.
Explore.
Learn.
And protect.